Welcome back to ReModel, Tales of Marketing Transformation. I'm Victoria Fox, and this is the show where we explore the operating model shifts behind modern marketing. In this episode, we're talking to two leaders steering one of the most ambitious marketing transformation programs in the mission-driven sector, Zoe Eungblut and Nicola Smedley, co-directors of marketing and digital at Cancer Research UK. They are putting their incredible talents from careers in the corporate world at BT and Unilever towards saving lives at CRUK. Zoe, Nikki, absolutely delighted to have you here today. Thank you for joining us.
Oh, thanks for having us.
I'm a massive supporter of job shares. This job share brings together some brilliant careers from different backgrounds. I'd just like to start by asking, in your career, what is the red thread that has run through your career that defines how you lead?
Yeah, I would say it's probably innovation and digital marketing, in the sense that that's been a path my career has taken. But definitely looking for the new, finding the new opportunities and testing and learning and seeing what can work. I think from my days at Sky, running the first promoted tweet through to looking at generative AI at Unilever and now CRUK, I've always been wanting to understand how the new opportunities can deliver impact for the role that I'm in. So always been focused on innovation.
I'd say for me, and again for the last 7 years, impact, whether that was in BT at a group level, trying to drive change globally, or at CRUK, all about the mission, how quickly we can get more money into research to solve the problem that is cancer. So impact definitely all the way through.
Yes.
I think that, coupled with really enjoying the fast-pacing environment of technology. So as Zoe says, on the innovation front, there's a certain pace that comes with that. And I think that's really drawn me to technology and technology through marketing.
What brilliantly complementary skills. And how's that starting to really take shape for CRUK with both of your backgrounds and skills coming together on their behalf?
Yeah, I think we're still finding our feet. We haven't been doing it long, but definitely both of our experiences are complementary, right? I think from my digital transformation, digital marketing expertise, combined with Nikki's expertise of the brand at CRUK and her experience, together it's quite a good skill set working closely.
From the outside, it looks really powerful in terms of those two complementary skills and experience, and that's exactly what the charity really needs to drive this next layer of success.
Yeah, definitely.
And I think we've really focused on the fact that we're covering a 6-day-a-week period between the two of us. So we have a crossover day on a Wednesday, and actually we're coming at the role fresh for our 3 days. And that's really powerful.
Really powerful. And I bet your teams are exhausted. 6 days of energy. Brilliant. That's exactly what the charity needs. At Unilever, you called it the School of Marketing. Mm-hmm. What did it teach you about craft and rigor that still shapes your leadership today, Zoe?
Yeah, I think FMCG brands in particular need to stand out and cut through, and they do that really well, having strong audience insight. And Unilever and other companies do that really well in terms of brand building. And I think my experience working on Dove Master Brand was great, an experience that really led that creativity to the fore. So finding a really deep human insight that drives great creative ideas out the back of it. And I think now my understanding of how audience insight is central to creativity is definitely that I really is rooted in me in my leadership now.
And Nikki, you talk about understanding complex systems. How did that develop, and how does it inform the way you lead now?
So I'd say from a BT and Cancer Research UK point of view, they're both hugely complex and large organisations for different reasons. I think not being able to take and understand the business lens of the organisation and how to narrow down the complex into something more simple, you're really not being the business leader you want to be, or that you need to be to drive the change that you're trying to drive. So I think understanding that complexity but with an angle of simplification and really pushing that right the way through. So being able to operate in the highly visionary place that you need to from a strategic point of view, but right the way down into the detail of performance marketing and how to shift the system is what you really need to do.
I mean, it's so complex and there's so many transformation work streams going on at the same time within CRUK. So that simplification and clarity that you bring is vital. How do you think that's helped you to lead the team through quite complex change at CRUK?
So I think we really try and focus on breaking it down for our team, you know, understanding the themes of the different programs we've got, whether they be brand-led, data-led, you know, audience-led, but actually being able to paint the picture in a really clear way and creates a really clear from and to, like what we're going from and what we're trying to get to, and actually where are we on the path.
And that sounds simple, but actually giving people that North Star of where you're going to, but also where you're starting. It might meander in the actual getting there, but people have that roadmap, I guess, and those guardrails to follow so that they don't feel like they're just in a chaotic change. So Nikki, you've been with CRUK for 6 years now. When you first came into your role, what was the first thing you listened for inside the organisation?
I really pride myself in being able to listen well. I think just going through the first few months and understanding what was working in the organisation, where the success was to build on, as well as understanding the big problems, taking the time to really do that at the same time as understanding the culture at CRUK and how you needed to approach driving change at a very CRUK and sort of local level within the organisation, and I took a long time to do that up front to make sure I got it right.
Do you feel the same, Zoe, that coming in from a corporate organisation, did you feel a massive difference in that culture that Nikki is describing?
Yeah, it's definitely different. I think there were actually a lot of similarities at CRUK to the corporate world, which I was surprised by. Actually, it is quite a big organisation with huge income, so actually the way it operates is quite a corporate or in a corporate way. However, I think the main differences that stood out to me were more culturally around collaboration and pace. I think were quite different. And I think it's interesting to see how we, on our journey now, are trying to pivot that as much as we can to try and get to the pace that we need to have the impact that we do need to make. But it's a different world, right? It is the charity sector, but at the same time, the collaboration part of that is such a good thing to harness, and we don't want to lose that.
Why is it within CRUK that it was quite siloed, was it, with regards to products, or have you had to make structural changes to be able to work more collaboratively?
Yeah, we made structural changes a few years ago to shift to a more centralised model, I would say, for the marketing more broadly. We're still on a journey with that, so it's not fully centralised in all areas. And I think that's really allowed us to take a single view, be really audience focused and really think about the audiences in one way instead of many ways. Also been really good for understanding how we're spending our money to achieve what. So not just giving us the sort of external presence to appear in one way to our audiences, but also giving us the internal view of what costs us more money, what potentially has more impact. And we've centralised a lot of that to have one organisation that's driving that forward.
You've mentioned that CRUK has a high number of reflectors. How does that change the way that you communicate transformation, and what do you really mean by reflectors? Give us a feel for that within CRUK.
So our teams are really good at providing input when they've had the right space and time to do so. So I think we're just really conscious of creating the right environment for them to provide the right level of data and input into decisions. So a lot of the time that's, have we got the right sessions? Have we set them up in the right size? You know, not too many people, not too few. How have we made sure we've put the right questions to the groups? How we've made sure they've had time to think about it and just really gone about it in a structured way.
I love how you've looked at the culture and been quite intentional about creating those cultural and safe environments for people to show up and bring their whole selves to that role. It's a massively mission-driven organisation where you can't rely on financial levers like you have in previous roles. How do you win hearts and minds during a change when you haven't got the same levers to draw on, Zoe?
Yeah, I think it is a challenge coming from the commercial world where that is a massive driver of performance. I think myself and Nikki have put a lot of effort in terms of focusing on what are the clear goals that our teams need to work against so that we are still focused on achieving our income targets for the organisation, because the more income we have, the more research we can fund fundamentally. So making sure that we're all really clear on the goals we're trying to achieve and the building blocks that it's going to take us to get to that goal, and being really clear on what that path is. That path may change, but it's really important for us to bring everyone culturally into that mindset of focusing on those goals and essentially getting on the bus, right, to get to the destination with us, whichever route we take.
How it feels to be doing this sort of work for something that is so critical in terms of all of our lives. Does it really change the way you think about setting objectives and being really, really clear on why you're doing things? How does that feel to lead something so important?
Yeah, I think for me it's massively important, and I think actually it makes you focus so much on ROI. I think in every role you're focusing on ROI, but the reality is that you need to have income back for the amount of money you're spending on marketing, right? And luckily in the charity sector, actually, the ROIs are hugely significant compared to what you'd ever get in the commercial world. But rigor on every pound we spend is critical, but also we know that the more we invest, the more we get back, right? So we ultimately need to have that focus on that efficiency and make sure that we're putting the money into the places where the ROI comes back, because fundamentally that means we can fund more research.
100%. I know when I started working with you, I really genuinely feel like this is some of the most important work I'll do in my career. And that balance of efficiency and effectiveness that we're trying to achieve all the time as marketeers is just so critical within this organisation. How does that show up in the culture and the ways of working within the team? Do you feel that passion from the team all the time?
So I feel like we've got a real advantage in CRUK in working in marketing, that you can tie everything, and I mean everything, back to the mission, and the ability to, drive or increase the profit, the money to research, or create efficiencies in the system, improve, automate, become more audience centered. Like everything can be painted back to an audience impact that is quite significant versus, any other organisation.
Yeah, there's actually lessons in that for all marketing departments, because one of the things we see and we saw in the research is when you're really linking business strategy to marketing strategy and then operational strategy, and it all ladders up, that's where you drive real impact for an organisation. And I think because of the mission that you're on, it's so aligned upwards on the business metrics that you get movement and you get a marketing operating model that is going to be really in service of those business objectives. In a mission-driven organisation, Zoe, does it draw on a different kind of leadership?
Yeah, I think one of the things that I've reflected on since joining CRUK is the transformation we're moving on, the path towards, is very much digitally and data-led. And actually the mindset required of dealing with ambiguity is key. And so that hasn't necessarily historically been the operating model at CRUK. And so actually we need to transition to that performance-led marketing. So it's bringing the cultural train along with us, I guess, to make sure that actually we're goal-focused, but also we're as a team are able to change and pivot. And that's not necessarily a natural mindset that we have in the organisation. So we're trying to encourage that mindset, because that is what will give us success, essentially, being able to test, learn, pivot, and go and scale what works.
How do you see wins in what you're doing with the leadership of that team? Have you got examples of where you're really winning?
I think just spending the time to bring people more on the journey, letting them be the storytellers of the change, seeing really good, positive excitement from the team around the vision, where it's going. Nobody doesn't buy it, which is a really positive place to be.
So actually, a really robust marketing operating model for you is even more fundamental than in other organisations, because it will just, once you get that, you can move at pace because people are already so bought into the change and the things that you can achieve when that is in place. We've talked before, and you've talked about the fact that social isn't a channel, it's a behaviour. What does that mean for how teams need to work?
Yeah, I think now in marketing, to make a brand relevant to consumers, to supporters, social is at the heart of marketing communications. And actually, it's not just about a channel, it's actually the heart of insight, it's the heart of behaviours, it's the heart of how we get a brand to be relevant in communities. So it's really about helping teams understand that social is through the channel, right? It's understanding right from the beginning of the process, what are the audience insights coming through from social, to how are we going to use those insights to feed creative ideas, through to how do we deploy really engaging, relevant communications, whether that's through creators or in other ways or through partnerships. But fundamentally, it has to be the thread throughout the marketing process now. So it's really about harnessing teams around that and getting that to be the centre of the universe for marketing now.
What are some of the quick wins that you've started to make to bring that social thinking into the teams and that agility?
Yeah, I think things like the influencer focus, creator focus, really getting the teams to understand the impact that a creator can have on behalf of a brand. From my past, and I think it's quite well known in the industry that creators can have as much, if not more, impact to your brand created communications. So we've been testing and learning opportunities with different creators to do that, and we're having success already.
So testing and learning is a great way to get people inspired and get them to feel comfortable trying things that might not succeed.
Yeah.
How do you create that safety so people feel that they can try things and fail and try things and then succeed, especially in an environment we've talked about where you want everything to return? Are you able to create that safety for people to trial and fail, because you are on a journey with regards to influencer and social?
Yeah, I think so. And it's about painting the vision, right, of understanding that actually we need to test things within guardrails to be able to get those learnings and understand what's working and then scale.
So process change only works when communication is clear. How do you structure communication so people stay with you? And in your circumstance, you're talking about shops, volunteers, call centres and the marketing function. You've got a very wide group under you. How do you structure that?
We've been doing some stuff recently where we launched a new ad-funded programming with Channel 4. And I think the example I would draw on is just really being able to describe to the subgroups of people that we have. So in that sense, trading or the contact centre, just really what the story is from their perspective and how they should be engaging their audiences. So I'd say one of the things we do really well is convert the sort of overarching brand story and the story of our impact into what it actually means for them in terms of how they involve the conversation they have with people they speak to. And constantly remembering to do that will mean that we have got 4,000 storytellers, which are our staff, as well as our 30,000 volunteers, not just a couple of hundred marketeers trying to get that story out in comms, essentially.
Nikki, you've said personalisation is now an expectation from your supporters. What does that demand from your data foundations?
So I feel like we have to be really clear how we're using our data, the accuracy of it, the decisions we make off the back of it. Just simple things like understanding whether our audiences are interested in a particular area of cancer, maybe early diagnosis, if that's the way they've come into the system for us. Maybe it's an experience they've had themselves. Just us being able to personalise more of our content to our audiences based on their needs. The data has to tell you that accurately to be able to act on it, and that's why we've invested such a significant amount in getting that data layer right.
Personalisation is truly personalisation in this context and means so much to individuals that is so foundational. How are you doing on that journey? It's not simple.
We've invested in the technology systems to do it. That's already been done a year or two back, and we're just starting to turn that into the journeys that our audiences will experience to see how, again, they evolve versus what we do today. So getting to that level of personalisation on many levels, you know, cancer type is just one of them.
Any advice for people going on that data journey? Because now with AI, getting your data into the right shape for most organisations is becoming hypercritical. Is there any advice as you've been on that journey?
I think actually recruiting the right person with the right skills. So we've got a director of data insight and performance who we've brought in to actually do this, and actually
advice.
having that role and actually having it sooner rather than later is really fundamental.
You're on the journey and you're in that plumbing phase where you're getting your data and your marketing technologies into the right shape. What do you foresee once you've got that working well in terms of the behaviour change you're going to need to instill in your teams to really get genuine audience intimacy?
So I feel like we keep storytelling with very specific audiences in mind. So whether that's talking through with teams and with leaders across the organisation, the impact we see to, say, information seekers who are looking for information on cancer, what's important to them, how do you paint that picture of personalisation in their context? Same with, say, philanthropy as well as mass audiences. How do you make sure you're constantly shaping the story in the eyes of the audience? And it's through that the teams are really driven to see the potential, see the potential for brilliant customer experience and want to then be on the bus.
It's a brilliant way to step them on the journey as well. So the insight is rich regardless of whether you're in a place where you are automating that hyper-personalisation, which might be the future. But right now they're really just getting under the richness of what that data can bring to the work that they're doing. What does the role of clarity and collaboration look like in a modern partner ecosystem?
So I think for us, we need to make sure our partners have got the right ways of working across each other. So they're really clear on the swim lane they have and how they come together to collaborate with us at the right moments, whether that be technology partners that are part of the delivery system for the broader data and digital transformation, or our agency partners who are delivering more of the marketing delivery and system, but actually they all know their place. We bring them together often to make sure their role for us is really clear. And again, we tell the story often of our mission and the impact they can have if they're, you know, delivering in the best way for us. So I'd say, again, with partners, I feel collaboration is, again, shaped around the mission, but with these clear swim lanes of responsibility and knowing the part they play.
And that being that intentional with the ways of working, the way you orchestrate your agencies, the way that you put those swim lanes in place is really important for that to be delivered by the client, so that the agencies are able to be brilliant but working collaboratively on your behalf at CRUK.
Yeah, and we're on a journey with this. This is not done. This is an area that needs quite a bit of focus for us to get right in the future. But I think it's one where we do appreciate that partners are more part of our delivery system in the future than they are today.
And when partners really understand the system properly, what becomes possible, do you think?
I think it's really important for partners to be focused on the business goals as we are, right? I see partners as an extension of our team. They are one of us. They're just part of a bigger team, essentially. And it's really critical that they are focused on the goals, the income goals, for example, as much as we are. And fundamentally, if we're operating to the same goals, then everyone has skin in the game, right, to achieve those targets. And I think for CRUK, it's no different to what you would look to do in the commercial world. It's fundamental to getting everyone working together to the same outcome, essentially.
When you see your partners respond to briefs, what signals instantly tell you they understand the role of data and technology in the question?
Yeah, I think data and technology essentially uncover insights and enable us to use those insights to perform better. So I think if partners are presenting with deep insight rooted through data, that's a clear indication that they're really rooted in their understanding of what we're trying to achieve, what's our job to be done, and what the audience behaviour is, and how data and technology can help us leverage that to get to the goal.
Nikki, in the 6 years, I want you to name your proudest moment with CRUK to date, because there will be more to come.
My proudest moment most definitely is when I led the team doing the work on the brand relaunch. So it was a refresh of the brand, taking lots of deep insight across all our audiences to really shift us on to the story we wanted to tell in the future that was going to lead us and take us through this transformation. You know, what's the brand story we're going to really lead with, and doing all the work that helped that, to get to where it is today, which is best brand, most loved brand, probably top of every index there is. I don't know that there's one that we're not top of, higher brand consideration than anybody else. And I think it's down to the insight and the work that brand project had.
That's a lot to be proud of.
Proud.
That is a lot to be proud of. And I think it's really interesting that you started with a brand journey and now you're on a more data-driven performance, hyper-personalisation at scale journey. I think that's the right way round. Do you think that's the right way round for a business?
Yeah, it's interesting whether it was the right way round. I don't know that it was an intentional right way round. I think the data and digital stuff has just taken us a lot longer to do.
Retrospectively, you can say
we were
it was a better way to go.
We were starting both of them at the same time. One's taking us longer, but I think to actually get the brand work to really lead our indexes in consideration so that our audience engagement is really where it should be, or our audience visibility and opinion about CRUK and what it does is right. And therefore, when we do deliver the data and digital elements of the transformation, how powerful and how successful we will be is just, you say about other exciting moments. That to me is the exciting moment in the future.
That's to come.
Yeah.
And I think that's what I mean is you've got such a clear North Star. You've got such a brilliant brand articulation, and now when you bring that down into personalised journeys, how powerful that's going to be. What one piece of advice would you give to a senior marketeer stepping up into a CMO role who's going through a transformation journey?
I think mine would be to really understand where your gaps are personally. I think before you do any of these major transformations, often you're doing stuff for the first time. So who are you going to learn from? Who your buddy's going to be? How are you going to bring that on? And how are you going to really learn and understand? I think that's one of the major benefits now of having Zoe to share the role with. We can do some of that thinking together, and where she's got more experience in some of the areas of AI and digital that can really help bring on my own knowledge and know that I need to do that.
And I love how ego-free that is. You've just talked about being self-aware about your gaps, and actually I think some of the best leaders are ego-free, and it's wonderful to see. And Zoe, I'd ask you the same question. What one piece of advice would you give to a senior marketeer that's going on a transformation journey?
I'd say it's about focusing on the main big rocks, essentially, that are going to make a difference. I think when you're going through a transformation, it can seem huge because there's so many things to tackle. But actually, it's finding and pinpointing the key things that are going to make the biggest difference, and really understanding where the desire within the organisation that will support the impact that those things will have, and doubling down on those efforts and making sure that you have the team centred on those key big rocks to make that impact, and try and distill away from the wider noise.
I think that listening to you both talk with such passion and empathy for the mission that you're on, I think that CRUK are very lucky to have double brains on this challenge, and I'm really excited for your future proud moments. So thank you very much for joining us today.
Thank you.
Thank you for watching, and we look forward to seeing you on the next episode of ReModel.